So running on this machine is a web server, and running on that web server is a page we call authentication analysis. And we like to hit this web page through different ways of authenticating, and when we do, you're going to see the user is going to be logged in here. You're going to see what the user ID is. The authentication method is going to tell you exactly how the user authenticated, and then maybe we'll see some header values, or if we're doing federation, we'll see claims, etc. So again, this is running on the development workstation, and meanwhile I've got a virtual machine running over here that is what I like to call the user experience. This is a Active Directory domain machine, right? So the user is going to be Active Directory joined, and they're going to be basically going through a number of different applications and exhibiting the single sign-on happening in real time. So to do this, I'm going to launch my browser and access the Cloud Access Manager portal, the application portal. Now before we go any further, let's talk about the screen that we're looking at here. First of all, Cloud Access Manager does understand Kerberos, or Windows Identity, right? And so if you configured this behind your firewall to say, I don't want to see a login screen, I just want it to automatically identify you, we totally support that. I have that turned off in my Firefox browser. That's the browser I'm using here. The reason for that is that I like to be able to sign in as all sorts of different people and do lots of different experiments, right? In your environment, if you want to configure it for Kerberos, you'll never see this screen. The other thing I want to point out about the login screen is that it's fully customizable. So we have full support for custom HTML and CSS pages, right? So you can make this look, feel, behave any way you want it to. So let's log in. And the first thing we're going to see is the Cloud Access Manager application portal. Now again, I want to pause and I want to point out some things about the application portal. First of all, I love this. Okay, whether I'm on my mobile phone, or I'm at my library computer, or my desktop computer, or my laptop, or whatever, every time I hit the portal, all the applications that are relevant to me are at my fingertips. It's like a traveling bookmark. Now, there are applications that I may not see that I still have access to. We're going to get to that. Those are over here in the application catalog. So why do I like the portal? Again, it's because all the applications that I care about are at my fingertips. Now, with that said, the portal is 100% completely and totally optional. There's no reason that anybody has to come to the portal to launch any one of these apps, and we're going to see that in the demo in just a second. But let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of demos. Up at the top here we have what I call legacy authentication models. All right, and by legacy, I mean these are applications that are really dealing with a user's identity or a user ID and a password combination. Right, so they're not federated, which is a more modern approach. Okay, so that's why I say this is legacy as opposed to a federation model that doesn't deal with user IDs and passwords, right? So that's why I call these legacy applications, right? They're not the more modern approach that we see with federation. So the first one I want to show you is this header value, where we're basically going to access that website on a different machine through a firewall, right? And we're simply going to inject the user's identity into the web page. And when we did that, you can actually see that right here. It says Cam user is Joe Campbell, and that this web page is basically programmed to say look for the header called Cam user, and that's the user's identity, and you can see that right here. Notice all the other attributes that are in here, right? So I have an email, I have a title, I have company. It's not just the user's identity that we're capable of injecting, right? We can inject anything about the user that you want to inject. So if you have a developer that says, hey, it's great you're giving me the identity, but I still need to write a connection to AD to go pull down the email address, etc. You can say, no, I'll inject that into the web page for you. You don't need to write that code. It's just like federation if you think about it, where a SAML token can contain a subject identity, which is Joe Campbell, and the list of attributes are essentially what I'm doing here, right? So again, in this example, header injection, not too common these days, but we still run into it on a fairly regular basis. Something a lot more common is the notion of form fill. So let's take a look at this application. We're going to click the form fill app. We see a login screen. It puts in a different user ID and a different password and logs me in successfully. So it says, okay, I see the user ID was $JCAM123. That's my service account. It sees that I used the login form, and I'm still injecting credentials down here. So let's take a look at another example, right? So that's header injection, form fill, Windows authentication. Now, a Windows authenticated app normally does do single sign-on, and it does it by nature of the fact that you're passing a federated Kerberos token. However, when you go across domains, that breaks down. And that's exactly what I have in this system here. This is an AD called DSG Soft, right? You can see that up here. My workstation is actually called Tempest, right? It's a different domain completely. So what happens when you do Windows integrated authentication is when you cross domains, the Tempest environment asks the browser, hey, what's your identity in Tempest? And the browser says, I have no idea. I know his identity over here in DSG Soft, but I can't help you. So Windows authenticated apps are actually a way we try to get single sign-on without having an IDP, an identity provider, but it does break down when you cross domains. So here though, when I click on it, it just goes right in, right? It loads that website, and notice it knows in this domain, it's Tempest Joe, and I'm still able to inject attributes about myself here. All right, so what we're seeing here is that it doesn't matter what type of downstream authentication there is, I'm still able to log you in. One of the things I want to point out though is that this site used the identity Tempest/Joe. The form fill site used a service account called $JCAM123, and if we come back to header injection, this just simply used my user ID, or my name, Joe Campbell. So in each one of these scenarios, including basic authentication, we're going to get to this guy in a second, in each one of these scenarios, there's a different user ID and password that's being used. So how are we doing that? Well, essentially we're doing it by the use of a password wallet. Each one of these sites basically has a credential that's needed, and we store that right up here. If you go to Navigate, Password Wallet, you're going to see that in the list of applications I have configured, there's a number of different user IDs that I'm playing around with here. So remember that for the form fill application, there's the user ID and password right there. If I wanted to as a user, I could come in and edit this. I don't really want to do that. What I want to do is delete it. So we're going to delete that completely. There goes the user ID and password for form fill. I'm going to shut the browser down and launch this one more time. We're going to log in, and I'm going to hit that form fill site again. Now this time, it doesn't do anything, right? It doesn't have the credentials that I used to log in. So I'm going to put them in. We'll change it this time. Click log in. And we're in. All right, it sees the new user ID, etc. What we didn't see is that it automatically populated that information into the password wallet. Right there, you can see that. So I know some people have said, I've seen this before. You know, there are your browser can remember passwords. There are this other product over here that remembers passwords for a login page, etc. While that may be true, it doesn't work anywhere near the way that this works. All right, so we don't have any agents that are installed on the user's machine. There are no agents installed on the target server. And basically everywhere you go, your password is going to be remembered. So with something that's based upon cookies or some sort of software that you install on the user's machine, when you go to the library computer and try to do this, you may have forgotten the user ID and password for this site, right? Well, you're not going to with Cloud Access Manager, because even though you're on a computer I've never seen you log in from before, I can still log you into this site. Now I mentioned again that it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're on Google or someone sent you a hyperlink or whatever the case may be. You just simply click the hyperlink for that site you're trying to get into, you're signed in. Go to the Windows Auth site, you're signed in. Go to the form fill site, it's going to remember you and sign you in. So again, the point I'm trying to show here is that it doesn't need to use the application portal if you don't want to. These are just simple hyperlinks. Hit the hyperlink, we're going to sign you in, we're going to secure your access, etc. Let's take a quick look at some federation examples. Federation, honestly, when it comes to a demo, isn't the most entertaining thing to do in the world because it basically just works. So what I want to point out is that we support both service provider initiated and identity provider initiated federation. What that means is that if you have a website that says we only support IDP initiated federation, then Cloud Access Manager is the tool for you. Because basically what that means is you have to come to the IDP and click a hyperlink like I'm clicking on this Salesforce hyperlink. Right? We will generate a SAML token and send it out to Salesforce where you get logged in. The same thing you're going to see with Google Mail, or this is not Google Mail, this is Google Apps, right? I'm going to log into Google Apps, it logs me in, we're just fine. All right, so in both of these scenarios I'm doing IDP initiated federation. I want to point out, though, that of course we support the notion of service provider initiated federation, which is where you navigate out to Salesforce first and try to log in, or Office 365, whatever that may be, and it says, hey, you haven't logged in yet, and it redirects you back to Cloud Access Manager, right? So the reason why I'm making such an important distinction between these two is that as you embark on an SSO project in your company, you're going to find some sites require one or the other mode of federation, and you need to make sure that the product that you're getting supports both of those modes, and of course we're going to support that natively. We saw a second ago how you can get federated access to Google Apps. Pretty simple, not necessarily too exciting, but what about the users that don't yet have access? We're going to show how just-in-time provisioning can be done. So let's kill this browser, go into Active Directory, and find a user. We'll try Todd Lord. So we're going to log in as Todd Lord. I just so happen to know his user ID and password. And one of the things I want you to see here is that on his portal view, he doesn't actually have Google Apps. But we have created a security profile that says he's allowed to get it. And so what we tell Todd to do is, hey, when you're ready to get your Google Apps account, your Office 365, Salesforce, whatever that might be, simply go up to Navigate and click on Application Catalog, and right there is Google. And there's a number of things in here. If we wanted to filter the list a little bit, we could filter it and see that these are the different things that he can be provisioned to. I'm just simply going to say, hey, he's going to go get his Google Apps mail account. He's going to click Add. We're going to go back behind the firewall, get that information for him, and provision him in real time. It's it. It's done. All right, so we go back home. He's got the link on his portal. We can click on that. We're going to generate that SAML token, send it out to Google, and yeah, continue, go to his account. So here's his brand new account in Google Apps. No synchronization engine was needed for that. There wasn't any need for us to provision people who don't really need to get Google Apps, because our model here allows the customer just simply to say, if there's something you need access to, go to the catalog, ask for it. If you're allowed to get access for it, Cloud Access Manager is going to take care of that for you. I want to transition the demo and wrap up a little bit and show you how we set up an application in Cloud Access Manager. And to do that, I'm going to set up Evernote. And there's a reason why I'm picking this technology, or why I'm picking this particular website. And the reason why is because it is quite honestly the most difficult thing we could possibly do. So to do that, the first thing I need to do is log into the administration console, which I've done here using Kerberos. I do have IE configured for Kerberos authentication. So up comes this window, and I'm simply going to go over to Applications and say View and Edit. And I've already got Evernote here. I'm going to delete it. All right, because I want to recreate that from scratch and demo this for you guys. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to say Add Application. And the first thing we're going to see is that I have a number of templates that are available to me. All right, so if I needed to set up SharePoint, I could set that up. If I needed to set up Salesforce, I could set that up. Citrix, it just depends on what you want to do. Now, if we don't have the template available for you, we can create one for you and you can simply upload it. But quite honestly, that almost never happens, because if you don't have the template, just simply say configure manually. And this is where you see what I like to refer to as the silver bullet of single sign-on. There are a lot of options here, and basically we can handle whatever that target website wants you to do. Notice that these are credential methods on the left over here. Most of them are going to be using our password wallet, right? So we can save your credentials. Header injection doesn't necessarily need to do that. Federated SSO models, that isn't the case at all. You log in Cloud Access Manager, we generate an access token, and send that to the website. What we're going to do today is form fill, and quite honestly, the reason why is because, like I said, this is the most difficult thing I could possibly do. Every single one of these wizards that I'm going to be running here, with the exception of form fill, anybody can do. Well, actually, anybody can do form fill. It's really super easy to actually set up a federation. There's nothing to it. It's really easy to set up a header injection app. But the technology behind doing form fill is completely different. With form fill, you have to know how to read the HTML on the target website. You need to tell me what the user ID box is, the password box, where's the submit button, what's the form action, etc. Right? So it's very, very challenging to do traditionally, not with Cloud Access Manager. So let's click Next. And basically, I'm not going to make you read this screen. I mean, you can pause it if you want to, but it's asking me, tell me the name of the website you're trying to log into and put it in this box right here. So I'm going to open up another tab. We're going to go to Evernote, and I'm going to click sign in. All right, here's a login screen. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to close this tab down and come back over here and paste it in this box. The other thing the instructions are telling me, and you'll see why, is to take this little hyperlink right here and copy it to your bookmark bar. So after you paste that in, you just simply say go. And sure enough, you can look at the URL. We're on Evernote now. Well, what the instruction said is after you click go, click this hyperlink that you've copied to your bookmark bar. And this is where we basically hijack the target website. Okay, so my tool has read the HTML for you. I know what the username field is, the password field, the login, etc. And I've basically color-coded that information on the screen. If any one of these things were wrong, like the submit button, you simply click change and then go click on the appropriate button. Notice the website didn't try to log in. That's because we've taken over, right? We have control. Now when you click save, it brings you right back to my wizard, where the rest of the fields in the wizard are basically already populated. So I see the username field here, the password, login. These are the names of the edit boxes and the buttons on the screen. I like to change this value. It's a personal preference. Basically what this is saying is how long after the form has displayed do you want me to populate the credentials? And I like there to be a little delay. Here's the URL form action. We're ready to go. I don't need to do anything here. Now I'm going to give it a friendly name internally. Okay, and then that's for the portal, and say next. It's got a list of roles. We're not really getting into that in this demo, but basically if I said I want this only available to employees or the sales and marketing team, we can configure roles in Cloud Access Manager that are linked directly to groups or individuals or exclusionary groups or exclusionary individuals inside your directory. Right, we're going to skip that for now. Click next. And welcome back. That was read by our wizard. It's the title of the page. I don't want it to be called that. I want it to be called Evernote. We're going to click next again. And then I want the description to be save your notes to the cloud. And I don't like that icon, so I'm going to say get the application icon. We've got it. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to update this hyperlink. I don't want it to go right to Evernote. I want it to actually go to the exact login URL that I saw before. So I'm just going to simply change that. I want that icon on the desktop of the portal, or basically on the portal page, to go straight to that login page rather than just evernote.com. All right, and then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to move this over to cloud instead of having it in a bucket called applications. You can create new regions if you want. Okay, and then essentially we're done. I'm going to click finish. And then we'll close this down and we're going to go log in again over here. All right, and there's Evernote down at the bottom. We're going to click on it, and because Cloud Access Manager has no idea what my credentials are for Evernote, that's fine. I'll just log in myself. That's my user ID. That's my password. Click sign in. And of course, I'm in Evernote. That's what we would expect. What I really want to see though is, did it actually capture my credentials and will it sign me in next time? So I say, let's get out of here. We'll log in again. Here's Evernote. We click on it. Logs me in. We're good to go. So there's one last thing I want to talk about in this demo. And to tell you the truth, there are other videos that are going to get into a lot more detail with this, but I basically wanted to make sure we did cover it and did see it. And that's the notion of multi-factor authentication. I'm not going to be using the Risk Engine for this, but what I have done is I've said one of the applications I'm trying to access requires multi-factor authentication. And it's actually that basic authentication example that I showed you before. And I said, we're going to get to that. So to get there, let's again play around with our bookmarks. We can go back to the header site. Works just fine. Let's go to that other form fill site. Works great. Love it. Now I go and hit that basic authentication site, and I get prompted for a multi-factor token. So here I can go to my phone. I can go open up a client app like I'm going to do now for demo purposes. I'll just open up my Java client, get a fresh token, copy that, paste it in, and click submit. So again, that underlying website, the one that we wrote that's running on the other machine, it doesn't understand multi-factor authentication. It has no concept of it. But basically, Cloud Access Manager is controlling access to that application now. And through Cloud Access Manager, we've made a very simple decision that said, anytime someone tries to access this app, they need to be prompted for multi-factor authentication. And we just saw that. The variations to that use case are almost endless. And when we start introducing the risk engine, they become even greater. So I would encourage you to go take a look at the other videos that we have. One being the multi-factor authentication video with Defender as a service, and the other one being the security analytics engine demo. I think those will be really interesting for you if you want to learn more about dynamic or adaptive authentication and multi-factor authentication. And that concludes the high-level demo of Cloud Access Manager.